Hello and welcome to Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 239 for Friday, April 10, 2026. It's an open lines Friday. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plant an App. This is an event that we do every Friday or most Fridays, 10 a.m. Central Time. It's an opportunity to get together to talk with our community. It's an all skill levels welcome event where you can bring problems that you're working on, questions that you have about the product, or maybe just be ready to help one of your fellow low coders. We record all of these and put them on YouTube. You can get to those through youtube.com/plantanap. We'll run this agenda. We start with introductions because we're a friendly group, and then we'll go around the campfire. We always start with first call and anything that you have submitted in advance. But then we'll dip into a variety of topics from the Plant and App community. But after an hour or so, we'll go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we turn off the recording, raise a virtual adult beverage, and enjoy each other's company for a few more minutes. So please do engage with us. Jump in, show and tell, use the chat window. If you do have a topic that you want to talk about in advance, you can do that by submitting an email to support@plantanapp.com. I'll get a look at that, do some initial research, and then we'll put it on the agenda to talk about. A brief programming note, on May 1st, we will not be holding the campfire gathering. And with that, we'll stop and say hello, one and all.
Hello. Happy
Good
Friday.
morning.
Happy Friday.
So glad to see you all. I will just say a special thank you to Mark, who was here last week with me. It was just me and Mark, and I made a resolution that from now on I'm going to cancel Good Friday because people have things going on, and not cancel Good Friday the holiday, but cancel Low-Code Campfire on Fridays.
Dale, you have some limit to your authority, so you can't cancel the whole thing.
You would be surprised how limited my authority is. All right. Did somebody come with something that you wanted to talk about? I always have things I want to talk about, but I get tired of my voice. I'm sure you do too.
Nope, not at all. But I do have a quick question if you're interested in talking about what we talked about via support ticket this week about a SQL statement.
Yep.
Um, Happy to talk about that one. I am curious. I took your advice. I thought that it was a cool way of doing it, and it did solve a couple of other problems, but it did bring to light, just as a quick background. Um, I had a task of generating, what I'm trying to do is create a bunch of different categories in EasyDNN news without having to go to the category manager. If you're familiar with EasyDNN news, there's a lot of clicks involved in adding a category and putting it in the right position, especially if you have a lot of categories and subcategories. So I thought, well, I can just manipulate the database, and I knew how to do that. I knew where the tables were, etc. So I created a little Plant and App form to do that. And I wanted to put multiple subcategories at one time. And I was built my typical way of doing that is to build a SQL statement that has, insert into the table and then row, all in one SQL statement. And so I built that and then went to execute it, and it failed because it escaped a bunch of stuff automatically for me. And my question was, why don't we have a tool that just says, run my SQL, leave it alone, just run it? And But instead of addressing that particular question, Dale saw a better way of doing it and suggested I just look at this other way of doing it. And I said, well, that's kind of cool. I'll do it that way. So I'll come back to the question of why not have a tool that just lets me run my SQL that I built and tested, rather than escaping it and doing things to it, rather than doing the other way of just doing individuals with insert tokens like we ended up doing.
So has anybody encountered this before? So you're doing the run SQL action and you've got your SQL all in a token and you're trying to expand the token into, excuse me, you put the token into the query window, and when it expands, it doesn't, in the case, I think the case was that every apostrophe got made into a double apostrophe, and then
Right. And
that
any
didn't
text
didn't parse.
strings that were part of the values, if they were strings instead of numbers, they're delimited in MySQL, so in the token, and then they got double delimited when you guys tried to, well, you started doing the SQL, you expanded the token and double delimited everything.
So I take it from your silence that you either don't want to participate or that you haven't encountered this. I seem to recall having encountered this very early on, pre working for Plantain App, that expanding tokens uh, within within the run SQL action was problematic. And then it occurs to me as you're describing this that this is something that our SQL console must correctly handle, um, because you can put it into, I believe you can put that kind of content into the SQL console and it will correctly execute it. So I don't know how that's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. You can, and so that's what I did. In fact, the little form that I created gives me a window where I can drop in one line at a time my subcategories for this category. And then I had another window that said what's the parent ID, and that's pretty much all I needed because then the building the SQL was one single insert statement with the columns that I wanted to insert, and then below that one line after another of parentheses, string of values, comma, parentheses, string of value, etc. A standard multi-line SQL insert statement. Um, and I just grabbed that and I put that in another box so that I could see it. Then I had a button that says "Go run it."
Do,
Um,
do you have do you mind if I show the SQL just to off of
oh,
the
sure.
ticket?
I can even open up um, the application and show it to you if you want me to share my screen. Either way.
Well, I happen to have it here. I don't think it
Okay.
reveals too much that.
Oh, I'm fine with, we've talked about it before. My wife is an Agatha Christie expert and she's written a glossary, and I'm helping her in showing that glossary to her membership, her followers. And those subcategories are chapters of Agatha Christie books. So, as you know, I mean, there's 30 chapters in a book, and to go 30 times into the category manager of EasyDNN News, which is the tool that I'm using to store her glossary items, takes a lot of clicks to put all those in there. So this was, you just drop all the chapter names in a little text field, a large text box, and hit a button that says "Build the SQL." That's pretty much what the application is.
Don, a quick question. Is there a stored procedure that you can leverage that they've already built?
I have no idea. I mean, I only know so much how to dig through SQL, and so my thought was, what tables does EasyDNN News build? And they have a nice, clean category list table. That's a simple linked list of parent ID and then a bunch of parameters for that given category information. And so I just added to it.
I guess I'm struggling like not being able to see exactly what you're doing, but are you are you passing in the token data through a bind token, or is it directly in the
He was just trying to run this as a run SQL.
Did it both ways.
I'm
So
not.
I was using
Are we
the
seeing your screen?
create update token to create the SQL statement. And so in the statement, if you looked at the token, that one token, it was the entire SQL statement. Insert into EasyDNN news. That's it right there. And that's a piece of it. There's, but it's kind of, it looked like that. And so that whole thing was a token, a token that I had created, and then uh, went to run SQL query action and dropped just the token into the
Ah,
SQL window. Then I
I see.
tried the bind thing by just putting an @ sign MySQL and then bound it to the SQL token. And same thing, similar thing happened. A little different, but a similar thing happened.
And that's how this works. Yeah, Dale, where you're going now. That the
I didn't
sequel
do
this
that.
this sequel's back sent in as a as a bind token, right?
But to do that, you're doing an exec. I'm sorry, you did the development on this, Patrick. So I'm going to
I
give
think
credit where credit's due.
this part Radu did, I think. But anyway, yes, you have to do a if you're going to pass in SQL as a parameter, you have to run it as an exec. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would have been the answer that would have saved you having to rework it. I suggested a low code way to do it as is my prefer maybe ability level. And then yeah, so this looks like it would solve it. You could send it through as a parameter and then
But
um,
I'd like to go back to what Matt said for a second because um we also use EasyDNN and I don't know for sure, but I'd be surprised if they don't have a stored procedure that allows you to insert categories. I think
Well,
that
that's
probably
fine.
What?
if you just explored if you just went through the object explorer in your database and looked for things that look like EasyDNN in under the stored procedures, you might find something there that
Well, I just
Yeah, that's
posted
like the
something.
200 level class I missed. So,
All right, I just
yes,
posted something, Don, that may be of interest, may do the job for you. It's EasyDNN News add edit category by permissions. Not sure
interesting.
that will do the job, but
it's suspect, huh?
yeah, it's a suspect.
Very cool. Well, another thing, as long as you got this on the screen, so I can add one more thought to this before we move on, and that is your suggestion, Dale, which I thought was a very cool one, and I never noticed it. But if you look at that SQL statement that was there, if you could scroll back up so that, yeah, the gray part, when you look at that in the values, that list of values is a CSV source when you think about it. And that's what I was building. And so Dale's suggestion was if you're building this, build out just the CSV source and then do a loop to convert that to a list and do a loop of inserts for each one. And that's what I ended up doing because then what I could do is for each one of those, instead of worrying about the about escaping them, putting quotes around them, I just use them as strings and parameters. So the CSV, the bind token took care of all of that, worrying about the um, um, parentheses, contractions of words, and things like that.
So turning the CSV into a list and then iterating through it. Um, and you correctly pointed out in your closing comment on this ticket that that ends up doing them one by one. And so there's a certain loss of efficiency if rather than running one SQL statement that does them in bulk. So I think the way that you were headed with this insert, if we had gotten the exec, that would be more efficient for a big insert. For 100 categories, I'm not sure you would notice the difference. So
Exactly. And this was
Add it.
something, you're doing manually. It's not like some process that you've got thousands of records that you have to put in and somebody has
Yep.
to wait for that to happen. So the efficiency was not an issue here.
Cool.
And so by doing that, it saved me a ton of time, and I was able to put all of the books of the 30s in kind of a few minutes, which was great.
Nice. Well, you guys were also polite in not letting me know that I wasn't sharing my screen. So uh, we don't have all my traditional open there was I'll have to go back and figure out how to put a screen and shot on that when I post it. But hey, it's hard to be perfect. What else we got going on?
Now we call that fix it in post.
Yeah, thank you.
Dale, I had a question for you or possibly the group. I've noticed only for a short time now, maybe a week or so, and maybe it's been there longer. I didn't notice it, but there's a message that is appearing at the top of a action stack that includes a do something and continue. I think it's a toast, but it could be something else. And the message says something about your web server is not set up to do this. You might have problems. Does that sound familiar? I'm looking for it now, but haven't found it yet. Bumping around.
That doesn't sound familiar to me yet. Let's see if we can.
Okay.
This is your, like in a form, you're trying to add an action.
Yeah, in a form with an action stack somewhere on a button or whatever. And
Yep. Let's find one of those.
yeah, I'm going to be looking through my stuff. I have a lot of those really, but not when you need it.
So I got a button. I got a action stack. Post and stop.
Do the and continue. Now maybe, and I don't know, but maybe you could save and reload. And it could also be that our web servers are set up differently. Yeah, it would be at the top of the on-click handler section. So it's above the stack, but below the add button.
Okay. I don't
So
recall seeing anything there.
I will locate it while you're talking, and I'll
Okay.
bring us back around to it. Thanks for looking.
Absolutely. And maybe it sounds like something very specific to your web server, or do you have multiples? I don't know. You're probably be interesting to see if you see it everywhere or if it's just on one server. There might be some kind of
I
configuration.
mostly use one web server, so I've seen it on multiple sites now, but yeah, I didn't slow down
Once
for it because it's still working. It's just giving me a warning about it possibly not working.
once we see the exact message, and it might turn into a support ticket, but the exact message is going to be in the code someplace, and I can look and see where that is. If we can't figure out exactly why the message is appearing, maybe the code will reveal that as well.
Okay, I'll loop back around when
Good
I find
one.
it.
Jump in when you do. What else? EasyDNN News apparently has a few stored procedures.
Just a couple.
Uh-huh. Whether they're documented is another thing. I mean, I'm not casting stones. I'm saying, what do you do? How do you know if they're okay to use?
Good question.
Hopefully, there's a documentation in there. Something else.
Yeah, I have a question. Is anybody used or using the PlantSnap AI connector?
Besides me?
Well,
I
no,
think I am.
you-
Yeah, that's a while
you
ago I set
think?
that up.
I don't know how, but
Well, I got a lot of stuff going on, Matt.
I hear you.
Do you want me to look for it?
No. I was just curious if anybody had some experience with it. I'm just looking to get going with it, so um, looking for.
Are you interested in seeing what it looks like? Are you stories of?
Yeah,
Be interested
sure.
in that.
I think everybody could.
There's a video that explains how to put that into motion. When it was a low code Wednesday, maybe
I
you
was
had a
looking
guest
for
speaker on.
Well, there was one that was done that was um, the guest speaker event was not using our action so much as directly server calls to a particular AI.
Yeah, wasn't that the job application video? The dynamic
Mhm.
forms, I believe.
I don't know.
That was Dale that did that one.
I did
Right.
that one, and
Yeah.
I do a lot of. Oh yeah, it might have included the AI, absolutely.
Patrick, you did the AI portion.
I don't think so.
Well, that's what you were on the promo. I haven't watched that section yet, so.
Nobody wants to take credit for doing anything on this. It wasn't me.
I'm trying to find some use of the AI. So one of the actions that come with the AI content is the AI handler is summarize content. So you can provide a big script and get it to do trying to chunk through it. So this is what I use, for example, to do the transcripts from our hour-long um, sessions like this one, um, and provided some instructions of exactly what I want it to get to do. So that's a if you have a lot of content and you want to summarize it, that's that one.
Mhm. Yeah.
Let's see if I've got another one here. I'm doing summarize and oh, here's the chat action. So this is probably the primary one if you just wanted to give AI something, specific to do other than you want to give it some specific instructions. So it has a spot for choosing which provider that you're using. You pick a connector so that it knows the connector has your credentials in it. You can pick a model from their list of models, from our list of models that we have set up in there. There's support for streaming, so if you want to watch it as it goes, it's a little bit harder to set up that way, but um, you can get a stream. So, for example, in a listing can um, can retrieve the content as it's happening. But otherwise, you just get it all back. So you provided instructions, a previous, if you have an ongoing conversation. So, for example, in a minute, and we look at the outputs, you can get the messages that have come off the previous conversation. So if you're doing multiples, if you're having a conversation, you can capture that and then pass it on to the next time you call the same thing. The message is what, in this case, I happen to have a token called response chunks. That's the thing I'm trying to process. So I'm sending it to the AI to do something with. It has a nice response format if you're really looking to get back. I mean, most of the time you're looking for text to come back that you're just going to present back to the user. But if you really want JSON to come back, you can choose that, and that helps guide the AI towards providing um, a, a JSON return structure.
Mhm.
Some of the parameters passing through to the AI so that you can tell it how you want it to work. where the output so this is storing it to a token that you can that would be used in the next step, whatever you're going to do with the answer that came back from AI. Here's the conversation that I mentioned so that you can pass it to the next call to the AI and us on the same topic. So the chat action is just kind of the Swiss Army knife that you get out of that. I guess we can look at
Hold on. What was the name of that action that you've been detailing?
chat.
Just chat?
Yes, all the way up here at the top.
Chat. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to look in our AI section here, if I can find it, OpenAI. So we have the AI chat. There's a thing that there's a utility to count the number of tokens if you want to take a guess at how much. I mean, AI thinks in terms of tokens, so and charges in terms of tokens, so that'll give you a rough estimate of what you're submitting and before you submit it. So if you want to try and guess the cost, you could do that. We have a create articles, a speech to text. So if you have a speech file, you could turn it into text, and so that you could submit it to an AI. And then the summarized content that I was looking at. So that's
What's that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
What's the create articles?
Let's look at one. So the I think the general direction is you've got a lot of content and you want to split it out into individual articles. So let it detect that. But let's see. So we have instructions, whatever the content is. And so then it's so I think the idea is if you had a table of content, if you were doing a book, if you had a book, a big PDF of a book, and you wanted to pull things out of that PDF, and maybe you're going to give it instructions. I want to divide articles up by the name of the character. That this would go through and ask AI to do that, and then every article that it does, it's going to you don't know whether it's going to return 1 or 10. So this on article created it would let you handle what article it pulled out. So you get the title, summary, and body. So
for instance, from there, if you had you could have an action say to create a PDF from that.
Yes, right. So you could pull something apart.
Okay.
So that'll be an interesting one. I haven't played with it, but it looks pretty straightforward. That it would let you get an unknown number of articles out of a larger article.
Mm-hmm. How so as far as setup goes, you just have to have access to what, a developer console inside of ChatGPT, get a token, things like that?
Right. There's a so in the one that I look in configuration, I believe that the connectors, so you would set up a connector for OpenAI, and when you create one, it asks for, let's see, OpenAI, it asks for an API key. So you would be able to give it a name. That's you name your connector however you want to, put your API key here, and then you then would be able to use that connector by name for any of the chat actions. So that's how it knows what context to run it under. And run bill it to your account, that kind of thing.
So what's your token ID, Dale? Would you mind?
I usually use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes I use password, all uppercase.
All uppercase, okay, because that's important.
Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely. What else?
Why is it I don't seem to have that connector, nor can I seem to build it? Am I missing something?
It's a extra cost connector, so you have to get with our sales department,
Okay.
buy it, and then I think if you're looking in the add-ons, if it shows up at all in the updates add-ons, it would have a buy indicator like this versus an install indicator. So depending on your license and what you subscribe to, you get access to it. I think it's available for a nominal monthly fee.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I found that error message if you're ready to take a look.
I would love to. You want to show it off?
Sure.
Find the stop. There it is.
Let's do that one. Okay, hopefully you're looking at it now. The orange or yellow message.
Yeah. Wow.
I've seen that before. I don't remember the context, but I do remember having seen that before.
I just sort of started noticing it, and it's one of those things where like, how long's that been there? I don't remember seeing that before.
And did it end up, let me get a screenshot of this. Did it end up that it's maybe on just one or a particular few servers?
No, I have seen it. Well, yeah, I really only have the one server.
Okay. Well, so this is everywhere then on your site. You didn't have any problem finding it.
Yeah, I did not have a problem finding it.
Okay. I will be happy to research that. And if you're inclined, open a ticket so that it gives us a place to have a conversation on it. And there's probably a setting that just needs to happen, which I would appreciate knowing what it is. We just for example, we're working on a health check
Oh, okay. Good
functionality here.
idea.
So to be able to say, such and such a setting is not set in the web config, make it easy for you to, although this message it'd be nice if it would tell you how to fix the problem, not just that you have a problem. That's maybe
That's a good idea.
a big wish, but that's anyway.
Thank you for looking at it.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can reshare here. All right. I love it. Lots of topics. What else? All right, here we go into my list. We can always go back to your list. I mentioned last week to everyone here that SQL Deadlocks was something that got became more apparent. The deadlock issue was always present in large high transaction databases, or just it was always present. But some changes that we made in 1.28 revealed that, and so we have not only we need to mention that issue exists as you go to 128, but also we have someone who actually found some SQL change settings that might help you avoid it, depending on the way that you're coded. Anyone on the call want to talk about that, or was it just wait for the documentation to come in?
If you want me to.
Well, I would never put you on the spot, Ben, but you have one of the more complex sites, I think, from among this group.
Yes. So, Yeah, so basically the way it worked previous to 128, as we are all aware, is that there were our SQL statements were just run directly. So most people never had an issue, especially if you have a website that is very low on concurrency, you would never really see this. My website has a lot of APIs as well as a lot of timed SQL statements that run. Some of them run like every 30 seconds, things like that. So there's a lot of data going back and forth, and it's very busy. So concurrency is a big thing. With version 128, Plant and App has altered their methodology with regards to any commands sent over to the SQL Server, and that is encapsulating them in transactions. Now, while on a higher level look at it, that is a more proper way of doing things, the issue is that select statements are also being encapsulated in transactions, and that's problematic because previously select statements just read data and that's it. But now, because they're being encapsulated in transactions, they are locking the tables and the rows related to the select statement, which then means any other select statements for that same exact table is going to have a hold on it until the previous transaction completes. So now select statements are actually locking records and tables, whereas previously they were not. And if you have a high concurrency website that is going to be sending 5, 6, 7, 8 or more requests simultaneously or back to back, you're only going to get, for example, maybe the first 5 or 6 requests after the initial one that locked it will end up processing, because as one unlocks, the next one goes through. As that unlocks, the next one goes through. But anything beyond, let's say, the 6th request is going to wind up deadlocking because it would have been waiting too long for a response. So this is where now this new methodology is causing a problem. So if anyone does have a high concurrency website, you're going to get inundated with deadlock errors all over the place, which is what happened in my system. So SQL actually has a workaround for this because this is a known situation. If the select statements themselves were not encapsulated, you wouldn't have this issue, but because they are, what they have implemented is something, they call it a read committed snapshot. So, excuse me, if you flip this to on, by default, it's off. When you flip it to on, what it's going to do is on a select statement, it is going to read the last committed version of the data that you're requesting from that table. So it basically kind of temporarily opens up versioning for all intents and purposes. And it's going to utilize your temp database in order to do this. So the temp database is going to grow and shrink and grow and shrink. It manages it on its own. I have not seen any major issues with the temp database. I've been watching it for several days now just to see if it blew up, and it doesn't. But basically what this does is, if let's say someone is doing something to a table, they locked it due to a transaction, they're in the process of modifying it, you do a read on the same exact table, you are going to be reading the last version prior to the start of the transaction. And then that data is going to return immediately. When the person finishes the transaction, they will modify the data in the table and that transaction gets settled. So there's a chance that the data you receive, as minute as it might be, will be outdated because someone may be editing the table at the same exact time that you're reading it. But in order to prevent the deadlock, you're reading the data prior to the start of their transaction. That's where that versioning comes in. Whereas without that, basically, if someone is doing a long process that's updating data, your select statement is going to sit and wait for the other transaction to finish to say, okay, I've finished modifying the data. Now you can read it and then go through. But again, because high concurrency causes deadlocks, this is the way around it specifically for this type of situation. So I know that was like really wordy, but hopefully I didn't lose anybody in that.
No, I actually got it. Good.
And
What was was it 128 that, was it a Plantain app change that
Yes.
changed that, or is it an,
Yeah, it's
okay.
version 128 that causes this issue because they've, like I mentioned, they changed the logic so that every single SQL statement that gets processed, so your SQL query commands and all of that, they are all now being encapsulated on the back end with a transaction. So there's a start transaction, end transaction, or begin transaction, end transaction, or commit. And then your SQL goes in between that. The moment you start the transaction, any table or record that you touch within that transaction gets locked until that transaction is committed. So even if it's a select statement and you're not actually modifying data, you do a select on a table, every single record that gets touched on that read gets locked. And then if you have another select statement coming in looking for the same exact data, it will not run until the first select statement completes. And this is where that deadlock issue comes into play.
so, for example, you have a query that has a select that is combined with an update, and that ends up being something long running. You're holding the lock open, versus if you have a select that goes and grabs a set of records as soon as that, if it's running for, um, if it runs and finishes very quickly, the lock is no longer held. But the longer that your individual SQL statements are running, the more chance that you're going to get into locking. Just to, I mean, it's minor stuff, but I'll clarify a couple of things. First of all, we got into making these changes because we were dealing with clients that had deadlock issues, and we were trying to provide a more uniform and consistent experience. Depending on which actions you ran and where you ran them from, you would get different levels of locking, and it was happening at too high a level, as I understand it, on some cases. So we went for a consistency approach, doing it the same way across the board. The concurrency issues were always there. It's just that these reveal that by implementing what we did, it reveals that concurrency issues exist. And there are some, I think, in this article that I'm going to publish, there's also some discussions about how to code to avoid that. But certainly this workaround is available as well. Thanks for providing that level of detail and what you experienced. Ben
Question on
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
So is that going to show up? Where does that show up? Is that something that just gets logged as an error? Is that a UI related thing? What happens?
It's a combination. So you're definitely going to see it in your error logs. Your error logs will blow up with hundreds of deadlocks, depending on how much concurrency you have. And then that may or may not translate into your on-screen displays. So, for example, you may have a grid that someone loads up, and if it's touching the same exact table that another transaction has locked, then your grid may potentially not load, and then you'll get an error on the grid. So it depends on how much concurrency you have going on. Because, like I said, the more things that get backlogged waiting for a previous transaction to complete,
Mm-hmm.
the more you have in that queue, the ones that ended up at the end of that queue are the ones with the greatest chance to deadlock. The ones at the beginning of the queue have the greatest chance to actually go through because there is a wait time. There's a few milliseconds that SQL will allow a transaction or any future transactions to wait for its previous one to finish. But the further you go along in this queue, some of them will be waiting for, over a few seconds. At that point, those will deadlock. So, like I said, you're going to see them in your error log, but will they translate to your on-screen experience depends on what's happening on screen. If you have a lot of stuff happening on the back end, like I do, it's a lot of it's not an on-screen type of thing. But we were seeing it in some situations on screen because, like I said, there were some grids that they were running, which is a report, and it happened to touch the same exact data that something running on the back end was periodically checking as well. And the two of them were stepping on each other. So then randomly, the grid would not load. It, basically it timed out and it got deadlocked.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
So, to your question, it would also show up in an on error, right? If you're doing a run SQL query and you have on error coded, then that deadlock should throw an error that you could then capture. So it would be possible to code defensively for that, but you probably you may not have, right? If you don't have anything in your on error, then it's going to show up as Ben describes in an error log and with random implications or unexpected. They're not. I don't know. Well, maybe random. Okay. Next. There was a good one, or I thought it was a good one, but mostly because I was able to answer the question pretty easily that Mark asked in the community forum.
That troublemaker?
Yes, that troublemaker. And while that comes up, I'm going to open two things here. The question and the answer both can come up. So Mark was wondering about, oops, this will be a good one to get into. I'll answer Roberto. Wanting to hide card fields, and this is something of a workaround. The idea is that you've got a data table view and a card view, and you only want to show some things in one view and some things in another view. And I pointed out a workaround that when you turn on views and you turn on sync with URL, the view gets added to the URL, which you can then use to suppress things. So to see this in action, I've got this listing that has lots and lots of fields. If I flip it to card view, we're only seeing the first name. And the other fields are suppressed, and that is with at the per field level. I am nope, first name I left alone, so I wanted to suppress last name, for example, and I'm just checking if the view is not equal to. It only shows it if the view is not equal to cards, so this suppresses it at the row level.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a very clever solution. I thought maybe there'd be a checkbox for that, but this works just
That
fine.
would be ideal. I think in our Bootstrap 3, there was might have been some functionality around that. I would like, for example, it'd be great to have it be here we have visible on. If we had a checkbox for cards, that would
Sure.
be
What are the settings that I haven't used card view in a while, so I don't remember what in the views in cards, what are the settings there? So that's just those settings there are just for where,
Special fields.
okay, special fields, yeah.
So all your fields that show up on the view are added into it by default. And then you have these extra ones that you can add.
Sometimes I like it when those additional fields are added by default, and other times I do not like it there.
Hmm.
So on those special fields, Dale, sorry,
Yeah, I'll go
following
back.
up Patrick's question, on the special fields, basically what you're doing there, and I've not used cards a ton myself, is you are essentially ultimately building a full Bootstrap 5 card. So you just like a kitchen sink type card. I don't know if anybody's used that, played with that.
Was that a question?
Sort of.
That was the same question that I was going to ask, Mark, but I didn't want to.
Looking for confirmation, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I've made a lot of cards, so I'm not sure if that answers your question. I'd never thought about the kitchen sink, but I've made cards.
That's what I was wondering, is kitchen sink like a special, some sort of special
Yeah.
thing that we're not aware of?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, a kitchen sink card has got all of the features of a Bootstrap card turned on. So
Okay.
anyway, I think I've got my own answer.
So yeah, I mean, if that translates to filling in all of those special fields with a field that's contained in the list, then yes, I've done that.
So
I
yes,
play with
by,
all those
by
numbers.
default, it throws in all the fields, right? So
Right.
Mhm.
I think if you call that kitchen sink behavior, I would say yeah. So then you have to work to turn them off, which was what we were illustrating.
Yes. And I would also like to remove those icons to the left of each of those fields. And I have done it with CSS, I think.
I would
I,
think so.
It's one of those things where like, why did you do that? Now I have to work hard to undo it.
That's a good question. I don't know. That's how we chose to implement cards.
I think that, and I'm sure other people have done this. One thing that you can do is just create a template field that's the only field that shows. And I know that doesn't work great when you have the switching back and forth between different views, but that's something I like to do. Then it gives you full control. You just write the HTML that's going to be in the card, and
Right.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so you could, using the technique that I was showing, you could suppress everything else. So you have a data table view,
yeah.
and suppress all that as you're doing the special field, which gives you full control. So interestingly, by comparison, I think calendar fields is not a kitchen sink approach. Only the things that you pick end up on at least on the calendar itself. Maybe uh, when you click an entry, I think then you get to see in the slide out panel um, all the different values that are associated with that item. And
Right,
now
that's
that
a detail view. Yeah.
a detail view. And now that reminds me, I think Mark, you asked last week, and I've had a conversation with the product team. You were talking about the idea that currently on a open pop-up, that the pop-up is always a modal, and wondering why it couldn't be sliding out from the side, which I think might be called a tray view. And that you figured out how to do that. Wasn't that last week you were talking about
Yeah,
that?
that was last week.
So the product team, and particularly the big boss, said, "Wow, what a great idea! That's brilliant." So I took complete
As
credit for
usual.
it.
No surprises there, right, Mark?
Yeah, no surprises.
That does
And so
everything.
Informs 2.0 and well, in the new design, and I don't know whether that will leak over into Action Form as well, but certainly in Forms 2.0, the design is going to support tray views coming out. So you'll be able to specify when you open a pop-up or open another form if it's modal or from the side or maybe even
Oh,
in.
that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, a direct line to the top somehow through you, Dale.
Well,
That's nice.
your name never came up. No,
Oh,
seriously, I did give credit. All right. Moving on. One small contribution made out to Campfire this week. There is I had need of getting all of the app data structure. And so, for example, if you take this SQL and run it in SQL console, you'll get every app data, every name in the app namespace, and how the table is structured. So if you wanted to step back and analyze how your tables are, or perhaps get an assistant to help analyze the table structure that you have, so that you can figure out what else you might want to do, that's useful. This was certainly something that was available in SQL console to be able to get just one table, but I thought it would be useful to be able to get all of them at once. So that's out there.
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. And we've made it to last call here. We have 2 minutes to go, and then we go into our afterglow segment. Anyone else want to jump in with anything last minute on the record? All right, let's do this. I will thank you for coming. It's always a great conversation. Well, I appreciate when there is a great conversation, which there were. Everybody had a topic today, and so worked out very well. We will be back here again doing this in a week, and shortly after that, there's a Low-Code Cafe. There's a very, very good chance that will be more on Forms 2.0 because it's coming along so well. But anyway, we'll see you in one of those two opportunities, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, Dale.